What if I told you that, like, tomorrow the ice in Antarctica is just going to melt?
Right.
But instead of flooding the global oceans and, drowning coastal cities, it's going to do something entirely different.
Yeah, I mean, it goes against everything we're taught.
Exactly. What if that melting ice revealed a lush, infinite terrestrial landscape? Like a completely new world sitting right next to ours, but bathed in the crimson glow of a luminary we currently call Mars.
It sounds totally like the premise of a high-concept science fiction novel.
Oh, for sure.
But, in the realms of esoteric cartography and ancient cosmology, that scenario isn't fiction. It's actually the literal physical reality of the universe we inhabit.
Which is just wild to wrap my head around.
We are talking about a model where our known world is essentially just a quarantined neighborhood.
And that is exactly what we are unpacking today. So welcome to this deep dive. I am incredibly glad you're here with us listening, because today we're venturing far past the margins of the standard classroom globe.
Way past it.
Yeah. If you've spent any time looking into alternative cosmology, you've probably heard mentions of the ice wall.
Right. The classic flat Earth boundary.
Yeah, usually it's pitched as this static, frozen barrier at the edge of a flat Earth. But the source material we're digging into today completely flips that simplistic idea on its head.
It's so much more complex than just a wall of ice.
It really is. We are exploring a highly intricate framework known as the cosmic egg universe, or the Norb theory. And specifically, we're zeroing in on the extra terrain theory and what this model insists is actively waiting for us just beyond the ice.
To really grasp this, we're asking you to just, suspend your traditional geographical understanding for a bit.
Put the spinning globe in a drawer for the next hour.
Exactly. Put it away. Because the fundamental premise of the text we're analyzing today, and these draw from a massive synthesis of Vedic scriptures, Kemetic Egyptian mythology, Greek lore, Norse myths, all of it.
It's a huge synthesis.
It is, and it argues that we do not live on a sphere suspended in an infinite empty vacuum.
Right. So, to set the stage for you listening, imagine a massive, multi-tiered pyramid structure.
Like a physical foundation.
Yeah. If you look at ancient Egyptian mythology, they called this foundational structure the Ben stone.
Right.
And if you read the ancient Vedic texts from India, they describe something similar called the Bhumandala. In this model, this massive terrestrial base is completely encased within a giant electromagnetic torus field.
And this entire enclosed system is what they call the cosmic egg.
Okay, so break down that egg concept for us.
Yeah. So the sources describe the universe essentially as a womb. The idea is that in the beginning, there was only the void, just infinite chaotic space and matter.
It's totally unstructured.
Right. But to experience structured life, a portion of this void kind of separated itself. It erected a shell, a frequency barrier, to protect itself from that infinite chaos outside.
Wow.
And inside this egg is where all of physical creation, all of time, and all of terrestrial space happens.
It fundamentally changes how you look at a map. You look at the edges of the Pacific or the Atlantic, and you just feel like there has to be more to the story.
Yeah, and there is.
Yeah, this framework suggests the map we know, the Earth we actually walk on, is just one single ring on a massive cosmic dartboard.
I love that analogy, a dartboard.
But, to even talk about what lies beyond our ring, we first have to redefine where we're actually standing on that dartboard. According to the source texts, the Earth is laid out as 4 concentric rings of land.
Picture a bullseye. You have the dead center, and then rings expanding outward along a flat equatorial plane. This plane divides the top and bottom of the cosmic egg.
Okay.
And the most vital piece of orientation we need before we go any further is this. Humanity, as we know it, currently lives on the second ring.
Wait, so not the center?
No, not the center. We are off-center. We are on the first expanding ripple.
Interesting.
The actual center, the bullseye of the plane, is what our modern compasses point to as the true North Pole.
Right. But in this cosmological model, the North Pole isn't just like a frozen, shifting ice cap over an ocean.
Not at all. It is a vast physical continent.
Huh.
Ancient texts refer to it by various names. You'll hear Eden, Shambhala, Mount Meru, or Hyperborea.
And the mechanics of that center ring are entirely different from ours, right? I mean, the sources state they don't even have a sun and moon like we do.
They do not. The luminary that governs that central first ring is actually the planet Mercury.
Wait, Mercury is their sun?
Yes. In this framework, Mercury acts as an androgynous luminary. It's a combined sun and moon, projecting this completely unified, non-dualistic light over Eden.
Oh, wow. Okay, let me make sure I'm visualizing this correctly. So we have the center ring, Eden, lit by Mercury.
Yep.
Then the second ring, which contains all of our known continents like North America, Africa, Eurasia, the oceans we sail.
That's us.
Then outside of us, there is a third ring, and outside of that, a fourth ring. But they aren't just sitting out in the open air side by side, right? Like where you could just walk from one to the other.
Far from it. The foundational rule of this universe is the Hermetic axiom, as above, so below.
Okay.
The lands sit on a unified plane, yes, but each of these 4 rings is totally encapsulated by its own individual energetic barrier. They are sealed off by torus fields.
So for you listening, if you aren't familiar with the torus field, think of the shape of an apple or the magnetic field around a bar magnet.
That's a perfect visual.
Right. Energy flows up through the center axis, blooms outward, and loops over the top to create a dome, flows down the outside, and then curls back up through the bottom. It's this continuous, self-contained energetic loop.
And the sources assert that what mainstream science identifies as the Van Allen radiation belts.
Oh, right.
Yeah, those zones of intense energetic radiation that encapsulate the Earth. The texts say those are actually these localized torus fields.
Wow.
And there isn't just one overarching field. The central ring has its own torus field. Our second ring is encased in a larger one. The third ring has an even larger one, and the fourth ring has a massive one that touches the outer shell of the cosmic egg itself.
It's literally like a set of Russian nesting dolls made of pure electromagnetic energy.
Yeah.
And we are walking around on the flat base inside the second doll.
That is a highly accurate way to picture it. And, understanding this structure gives us a fascinating lens to interpret statements made by modern space agencies.
Oh, like when they talk about the shape of the Earth.
Exactly. When organizations like NASA tell the public that the Earth is an oblate spheroid, the Norb theory argues they're actually presenting a deliberate half-truth.
Wait, a half-truth? Because if the ground is a flat ring, where does the oblate spheroid measurement even come from? Are they just making it up?
No, it comes from the torus field itself.
Oh, I see.
The energetic shield that encapsulates our specific second ring is an oblate spheroid. The text claims that science is accurately measuring the localized sky or the electromagnetic ceiling and floor of our specific terrarium.
But they're misattributing that shape to the physical terra firma.
Exactly. The ground itself is flat. It's part of that greater Ben-Ben pyramid extending across the cosmic egg. So they're measuring the cage, not the floor of the cage.
I want to push back on this a bit, though. Let's say we are on the second ring of a flat plane, living under an energetic dome. What physically stops an explorer or, a military expedition from just hiking into the first ring or sailing out into the third ring?
It's a good question.
We have ships, we have submarines, we have planes. Is the weather just too extreme? Do you just run out of fuel?
The barrier is much more profound than just extreme weather or logistical supply chain issues.
Okay.
What stops us is an impenetrable physical and energetic perimeter. And this is where we have to fundamentally redefine what the ice wall actually is.
Because we mistakenly identify this boundary as a mere geographical pole.
Right. Growing up, every map and globe teaches us that Antarctica is a continent at the bottom of a spinning ball. A South Pole.
Yeah, you go south, you hit a landmass, you put a flag in the snow, and you're at the bottom of the world.
But in the cosmic egg model, Antarctica isn't a pole at all.
It's a perimeter.
Exactly. It is a massive, unbroken, mountainous ring of ice that borders the entire outer edge of our specific localized torus field. It surrounds our known oceans like the elevated rim of a bowl.
So if I get on a boat in South America or South Africa or Australia, and I travel south, which in this model just means traveling outward, away from the central bullseye, eventually I hit the rim.
You hit the rim. And this physical wall of ice works in direct tandem with the electromagnetic Van Allen belt.
They aren't separate things.
No, they are not two separate phenomena. The ice wall is the physical earthly manifestation of where that electromagnetic dome meets the ground. It completely and utterly seals off our ecosystem from the outside rings.
I'm trying to wrap my head around the mechanics of that. How does an invisible magnetic dome create a physical wall of ice that is miles high and thousands of miles long? I know the sources get deep into the pseudophysics of this, and it's wild.
It really is. It relies on understanding the kinetic energy of the system. The model explains that all of these torus fields are powered by a central cosmic vortex.
Like an axis.
Yes, an axis or a pillar running straight down the middle of the universal egg. And because of this centralized power source, the torus field encapsulating our specific ring is oscillating. It is actively spinning at roughly 1,000 miles per hour.
Which is the exact speed mainstream science tells us the physical globe is spinning at the equator.
Yes. The text argues that the 1,000 mile per hour rotation is completely real and measurable, but it's the rotation of the localized atmospheric dome above our heads, not the rock beneath our feet.
Oh, that makes so much sense within this framework.
Right. This massive spinning energetic dome contains atmospheric gases. It's essentially a giant centrifuge.
Okay.
The spinning creates our specific localized weather, our ocean currents, our jet streams. It literally generates the atmospheric layers we know: the troposphere, the stratosphere, the mesosphere, and the thermosphere.
So they're all nested inside this spinning torus field.
Precisely.
Okay, if I use the analogy of cymatics, where you put sand on a metal plate and play a specific sound frequency through a speaker.
Yeah, the sand patterns.
Right. The vibration makes the sand organize into very specific, separate geometric rings. The sand naturally gathers where the frequency creates a boundary.
That's a great analogy.
In this model, the 1,000-mile-per-hour spin of our torus field is the frequency. It pushes the atmospheric pressure and moisture outward.
And when that moisture and pressure hits the absolute outer limit of our torus field, it loses its kinetic energy and freezes.
Wow.
The ice wall is essentially the friction point. It is the frozen accumulation of our localized weather system crashing against the energetic boundary of our dome. It's where the sky literally locks into the earth.
And the text makes a huge point of tying this physical reality into modern geopolitics. It claims that global governments and elite military factions are highly aware of this boundary.
Oh, they point directly to the Antarctic Treaty as evidence.
What? The treaty?
We are taught the treaty exists to preserve pristine nature and protect penguins. But the sources highlight the unprecedented nature of this treaty.
It was signed during the Cold War, right?
Yes. In the middle of the Cold War, when nations couldn't agree on anything and were locked in proxy wars all over the globe, they seamlessly came together to heavily militarize and completely restrict independent exploration of Antarctica.
It's treated like a massive planetary quarantine zone. Like, you can book a highly regulated cruise to sail to the edge of the ice, you can take pictures of the frost, but you are not allowed to independently traverse the continent.
Exactly.
The model argues this isn't about protecting the environment at all. It's because Antarctica is the fence of our enclosure. You're looking at the localized glass of our terrarium.
We are, for all intents and purposes, sealed in.
But hold on, let me play devil's advocate here, because this is where my mind immediately goes. We send rockets to space. We have satellites. We see the footage. If the wall is physical ice and the dome is impenetrable electromagnetic energy, what does going to space actually mean? Are the rockets just bouncing off a ceiling?
This is perhaps the most astonishing paradigm shift in the entire theory. We have to completely redefine our vocabulary here.
Okay.
When you hear the phrase outer space, you have been conditioned to look up into a dark, endless vacuum filled with floating spherical rocks.
Yeah, that's what we all picture.
But in the Norb theory, outer space does not mean looking up. It means traveling outward, laterally, across the ice, into the outer spaces of the terrestrial plane.
This is the extraterrene theory, the idea that space is just more land. Let's break down the semantic trick the sources claim space agencies are playing on us.
The text argues that when NASA or other agencies talk about exploring outer space, it is a deliberate, orchestrated misunderstanding of outer lands.
Outer lands.
Right. To go to space actually means attempting to cross our localized Van Allen belt, breach that immense ice wall perimeter, and enter the third concentric ring of land.
So, when I look up in the night sky and see the planets Mars and Venus, what am I actually looking at? If they aren't distant rocks in a vacuum millions of miles away, what are they?
In the cosmic egg model, Mars and Venus are the literal sun and moon orbiting over that specific third ring of land.
Wow.
Think about our sky. We have our sun, which the esoteric texts refer to as Apollo, and our moon, Artemis. They circulate inside our specific torus field, providing light to the second ring.
Right.
The third ring operates on the exact same principle, but its luminary is Mars, acting as its sun, and Venus, acting as its moon, circling inside their massive torus field.
Okay, if I am adopting the lens of this source material, when a space agency holds a press conference and says, we are planning a manned mission to Mars, the model claims they're technically telling the truth.
Yes.
They just aren't explaining the geometry truthfully.
Exactly. They aren't building a ship to fly up into a vacuum to physically land on the luminary we call Mars.
Mm-hmm.
The sources state unequivocally that you cannot land on a luminary.
Because they're just light.
Yes, in this cosmology, The stars, the suns, the moons, they are energetic, transcendental plasma projections. They're oscillating within the frequencies of the torus fields.
Yeah.
You can't land on Mars any more than you can park a car on a rainbow.
Park a car on a rainbow. I love that. So it is an optical, energetic phenomenon.
Right.
So what are they actually trying to land on?
They're attempting to breach our Van Allen belt to reach the outer terrestrial ring, the physical ground of the third ring, where the luminary Mars provides the ambient daylight.
Okay. Imagine standing in a dimly lit room. You're looking through a thick, incredibly distorted, nearly opaque glass window into a neighboring room.
Okay.
And that neighboring room is illuminated by a bright red light bulb. Let's call that red bulb Mars. You aren't trying to build a vehicle to go land on the hot glass of the red light bulb.
Oh.
You're trying to figure out how to break the window, step through the frame, and walk into the red room itself.
That is the exact logistical dynamic the texts describe.
Yeah.
And the sources state that currently, human spaceflight is largely incapable of crossing the Van Allen belts.
We just don't have the tech.
Right. What we call lower Earth orbit is essentially just skimming the upper interior boundary of our specific torus field. We are driving along the inside of the glass.
Wow.
But military and space agencies have spent decades, actively and sometimes desperately, trying to figure out how to breach this electromagnetic perimeter.
The sources bring up historical events to back this up, too. Things like Operation High Jump in the late 1940s.
Oh, yes. Admiral Richard E. Byrd.
Right, taking a massive naval armada to Antarctica. There are all those unverified but heavily circulated quotes attributed to Byrd upon his return, talking about seeing a landmass beyond the pole the size of the United States, a land that wasn't covered in ice.
And following High Jump, you have Operation Fishbowl in 1962.
Operation Fishbowl.
Yeah, where the United States military fired high-altitude nuclear missiles directly upward into the atmosphere.
Which is insane to think about.
Mainstream history says it was to test nuclear detonations in the upper atmosphere. But the Norb theory sources claim it was a literal brute force attempt to find a crack in the dome.
Like trying to blow the door off its hinges.
Exactly. To blast a hole through the electromagnetic firmament to reach these outer lands.
It reframes the entire Cold War space race. It wasn't a race to the moon or the vacuum. It was a race to the borderlines of our reality. The first nation to crack the dome gets access to infinite new territory.
Infinite resources.
But let me follow the logic of the biology here for a second. If Mars is the sun of the third ring, and it's projecting a completely different frequency, a different spectrum of light, what kind of life could possibly survive under a red sun on an adjacent ring of Earth?
That question leads us directly to the model's definition of aliens.
Okay.
But before we analyze the neighbors, we have to understand the full scope of the neighborhood. We need to look even further out, past the third ring to the fourth and final ring, the deep outer lands.
Right. So we have our ice wall. Beyond that is the third ring, the lands illuminated by Mars and Venus. But then if you keep traveling outward across that terrain, eventually you hit another perimeter.
Another immense ice wall.
Another energetic barrier. And beyond that lies the fourth and outermost ring of the Bhumandala Pyramid.
Yes. And the sun and moon for this final terrestrial ring are the massive luminaries we know as Saturn and Jupiter.
Saturn as a sun. That is an incredibly heavy, intimidating image.
Saturn is the sun illuminating the outermost realm, and Jupiter acts as its moon. And the outermost boundary of this fourth ring is the absolute edge of the cosmic egg itself.
The final wall.
It is the final, impenetrable shell separating our entire contained universe from the chaotic, multiversal void outside.
What I find so compelling about how these sources construct this isn't just the sheer imagination of it, but the syncretism.
It's amazing.
The creator of the Norb theory didn't just invent this topography out of thin air. They overlay Vedic scriptures, ancient Egyptian myths, Greek cosmology, and Norse mythology, and demonstrate how these ancient cultures were seemingly drawing the exact same map.
Just using regional character names. The syncretism is really the bedrock of the theory. Let's look at Norse mythology, for example, because it provides a spectacular visual language for these outer rings.
Okay.
In the Norse text, human beings live in a realm called Midgard. Midgard literally translates to Middle Earth, or the middle enclosure. In the concentric ring model, Midgard is us, the second ring.
And when you leave Midgard in the Norse texts, you encounter the Nephilim, which they describe as a treacherous realm of frost and unyielding ice.
Exactly.
That maps one-to-one with the Antarctic ice wall.
Precisely. And if you survive the frost and cross into the third ring, the realm where Mars is the sun The Norse called that Jotunheim,
Jotunheim.
the land of the frost giants, a harsh, massive landscape.
Yeah.
And beyond that, if you breach the next barrier into the outermost fourth ring where Saturn shines, the Norse called it Muspelheim, the land of the fire demons, a realm of primal destructive energy.
And you cross-reference that with the Vedic texts from ancient India, written thousands of miles away and thousands of years apart, and they describe the exact same geometric layout.
It's uncanny.
They called the central realms the Bhumandala, an expansive disk of concentric islands and oceans. And they say the absolute outermost limit of the world, the final massive barrier before the darkness of the void, is an impassable mountain range called the Lokaloka Mountains.
The Lokaloka Mountains. The word literally translates to a world and no world.
A world and no world.
Signifying the boundary between the manifested universe and the void.
It sounds like Tolkien. It's as if Lord of the Rings wasn't a fantasy story, but a literal, physical map of the suburbs sitting right outside our planetary city limits.
Yeah, that's exactly how it reads.
But the sources don't just treat these outer realms as geographical oddities. There is a deep philosophical and spiritual mapping here as well.
There is. What is vital to understand is how these extreme outer rings are characterized psychologically in the sources.
Okay.
The text describes the progression from the center of the earth to the outer rings as a progression from the divine and organic to the deeply intellectual and artificial.
Wait, elaborate on that. What makes a piece of land artificial?
It has to do with the frequency of the luminaries. The center ring Eden, where Mercury shines, is described as the origin point of creation. It is a place of pure, organic nature, vibrating at a high divine frequency.
Right.
The text often refers to this frequency as Christ consciousness, a state of total unity, peace, and spiritual connection. Our ring, the second ring, is one step removed from that. It's a mix.
It's like the transition zone.
It is the battleground of duality. We have good and evil, nature and technology, spiritualism and materialism.
But as you move outward,
Because you move outward to the third and fourth rings, to the realms of Mars and Saturn, you are moving as far away from the divine center as possible within the cosmic egg.
oh, I see.
The sources describe these outer realms as deeply disconnected from source energy. They are realms characterized by high intellect, extreme calculation, and incredibly advanced artificial technology, but they are completely devoid of spiritual warmth or empathy.
It's a cold, mechanical progression. Jotunheim and Muspelheim aren't just physically hostile environments, they are spiritually cold. Which organically brings me to my next thought. If these outer rings are so hostile, so synthetic, and vibrating at such bizarre frequencies, who exactly lives there right now? Because if we have this massive ecosystem, it can't just be empty rock.
It isn't empty, and this perfectly sets up the source material's redefinition of extraterrestrials.
Okay, here we go.
We have been conditioned by Hollywood to envision aliens as advanced beings traveling millions of light years across a vacuum in metallic spacecraft.
Right, little green men from Alpha Centauri.
Exactly. The Norb theory tells us to throw that image away. They aren't from the stars above us. They're from the terrain right next door.
The etymological breakdown in the text is one of my favorite parts of this whole theory. The term extraterrestrial. We use it to mean from outer space, but if you break the word down literally, extra means more or additional. Terra means land.
More land.
Extraterrestrial literally translates to more land.
It is a truth hiding in plain sight. The entities we've spent decades calling aliens, or UFOs, or cryptids, or even what ancient texts described as demons or jinn. The model argues these are actually beings, biological entities and crafts originating from the third and fourth rings of our own flat plane. They are extraterrene beings.
So what does the biology of an extraterrene being look like? Because if they are living under different suns, in completely different atmospheric domes, their evolution must be wildly different from ours.
Utterly different, because their entire environment oscillates at a different frequency.
Right.
We established that our torus dome spins at 1,000 miles per hour. That dictates our gravity, our atmospheric pressure, our biological rhythms.
Okay.
But the torus field over the third ring, the Mars realm, oscillates at 67,000 miles per hour.
Wow.
And the fourth ring, the Saturn realm, oscillates at roughly 500,000 miles per hour.
500,000 miles per hour. The energetic friction alone must be staggering. What does a 500,000 mile per hour atmosphere do to a physical body?
It dictates a radically different ecosystem. The light source is a different wavelength. The atmospheric density is heavier. The very breath or resonance of the land is hyper-accelerated.
That's intense.
The sources suggest that this is where life forms that we consider mythical, extinct, or impossible actually exist.
Because the conditions allow for it.
Because the pressure and frequency are so different, biological structures can grow much larger and denser. The text specifically posits that the outer rings could be the home of giant flora and fauna, surviving dinosaurs, and the bizarre, highly intellectual yet spiritually detached creatures we label as greys or reptilians.
Oh, wow.
They evolved under different suns and different gravitational realities.
That brings up a massive psychological point mentioned in the text. We view these beings as aliens when they supposedly visit us. We are terrified of them.
Naturally.
But to them, we are the aliens. If a being from the Saturn ring manages to slip into our realm, they're operating on an entirely different physical and spiritual frequency.
Which is exactly why their visitations to our ring seem so jarring, so bizarre, and often defy our laws of physics.
Like UFOs making right-angle turns.
Exactly. The craft we see UFOs making right-angle turns at Mach 20 without sonic booms aren't necessarily breaking physics. They're operating on the physics of a 500,000 mile per hour torus field, and they are temporarily projecting that frequency into our slower 1,000 mile per hour dome.
They literally do not vibrate at the speed of our reality.
Nope. They are completely out of sync.
Imagine putting a bioluminescent deep-sea anglerfish, something that lives at the bottom of the Mariana Trench under thousands of pounds of pressure,
Okay.
and suddenly teleporting it into a calm, sunny, freshwater trout pond. The trout are going to look at this glowing, jagged-toothed monster and think, what is that alien?
That's a brilliant way to picture it.
But the anglerfish isn't from outer space. It's just from a totally different pressure zone on the exact same planet. The environments are entirely separated by pressure and frequency, even though they share the same Earth.
That analogy captures the model perfectly. We are terrestrial neighbors, separated by localized, energetic, atmospheric domes.
But that creates a huge logistical paradox for the theory.
How so?
If the Van Allen belts, these torus fields, are truly impenetrable electromagnetic walls, if they act like quarantine glass, how are these extraterrestrial beings getting in?
Right.
Why are there so many UFO sightings now? And for that matter, how do our own governments expect to ever get out to Mars if the dome is a locked door? Have they always been this strong?
That is the pivotal question, and it brings us to one of the most dynamic, shifting aspects of the cosmic egg theory. The walls are not static.
They change.
They aren't permanent, frozen, unyielding barriers. The universe, this entire torus structure, is a breathing mechanism. And according to the texts right now, the walls are shifting.
The cosmology acts like a clock.
Exactly. A massive epipal cosmic clock. The sources explain that the torus fields, the Van Allen belts, expand and contract over massive spans of time. This breath is dictated by the cosmic vortex at the very center of the egg.
So it's inhaling and exhaling.
Like a lung inflating and deflating, the boundaries between the four wings shift.
The texts state these cycles take roughly 26,000 years to complete. If we look at the Vedic texts again, these periods are known as the yugas.
Right, the yugas.
You have the Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, and the Iron Age. We usually think of these ages as metaphors for human behavior, like times of peace versus times of war. But in this model, the yugas describe the literal, physical, and energetic state of the planet's torus fields.
The mechanics of this cosmic breath determine the physical reality of the ages. The sources argue that for the last several millennia, humanity has been in the Iron Age, or the Dark Age.
Known in Vedic terms as the Kali Yuga.
Yes, the Kali Yuga. During the peak of the Kali Yuga, all the torus fields are tightly contracted. The lung is deflated. The domes are locked down tight, completely isolating each ring from the others.
Total quarantine.
During this time, duality is at its highest, spiritual consciousness is at its lowest, and we are functionally quarantined from the rest of the terrestrial plane.
We've been locked in our room.
Yes.
But according to the model, we are currently at the end of that cycle. We are entering an ascending phase. We are transitioning into what astrology calls the age of Aquarius. And as the cosmic lung begins to breathe out, the torus fields are beginning to expand. They are literally dilating.
This point is critical to how the model interprets modern science.
Okay.
The sources state that the scientific phenomena we observe and often panic over are actually natural signs of this planetary expansion.
Give me an example.
Take the hole in the ozone layer. Science tells us it's a man-made crisis caused by CFCs and aerosol cans.
Right, we use too much hairspray.
Exactly. But the Norb theory posits that the hole in the ozone layer at the poles is actually the natural physical expansion of our torus field as we ascend into a new age.
Oh, wow.
The energetic barrier is thinning, The pupil of the eye is dilating to let more light in?
Like a flower opening its petals. The barriers between the worlds are physically separating. And as that torus field expands outward, it creates literal openings, energetic gateways, where passage between the inner and outer rings suddenly becomes physically possible.
This is how the model explains the modern era. This is why, according to the text, the extraterrene beings are appearing more frequently.
Because the borders are thinning.
Yes, allowing their craft to slip
Okay.
through. It's also why our own space agencies are suddenly so aggressively confident that they will soon reach Mars. They know the door is slowly unlocking.
That is fascinating.
Over massive amounts of time, as we move closer to the next golden age, the sources claim these localized torus fields will assimilate completely. The walls will vanish, and the entire Bhumandala will be freely connected.
Okay, if I follow this to its logical conclusion, a massive question arises.
Lay on me.
If the walls are coming down and we are on the verge of having access to infinite new lands, completely new ecosystems, and virtually unlimited resources, well, why the secrecy? Why wouldn't the global elite, the governments, the space agencies be celebrating this publicly? Why isn't this on every news channel as the greatest, most liberating discovery in human history?
Because liberation for the masses means a loss of control for the rulers.
Yeah.
This is where the source material takes a stark, deeply conspiratorial and spiritual turn. It all comes down to the mechanics of power. The model asserts that global elites have been aware of this extraterrene layout for a very long time.
And they're hiding it.
And their primary objective is to conquer it, or at the very least, strictly control access to it in order to maintain their dominance.
Right, because scarcity is the ultimate tool of control. Our entire global system, our economy, our borders, our politics, our endless resource wars over oil and water is built entirely on the premise that we live on a finite, isolated spinning ball with limited resources.
Exactly.
If the public woke up tomorrow and knew there was effectively infinite land and resources just a few thousand miles past the Antarctic ice wall, the current systems of control would evaporate. The power of fiat money, the justification for wars, it would all instantly collapse.
It would be an overnight paradigm death. The landlords of our ring would lose all their leverage. But the sources delve even deeper into this.
Deeper than just control.
Yeah. It's not just about greed or political power. It's about spiritual frequency. The text describes the elites ruling this current system, not just as corrupt humans, but metaphorically, and in the context of the model, perhaps literally, as fallen angels.
Fallen angels. What does that mean in the context of frequencies and torus fields?
It means they are entities or souls whose consciousness is actively descending. We talked about the yugas, the cycle of the ages.
Right.
Right now, the center of the Earth is beginning to radiate a higher frequency. The torus fields are opening. Many souls on Earth are currently ascending in consciousness. They are waking up, seeking truth, returning to nature and organic connection as we enter the age of Aquarius.
People are feeling that shift.
But the elites, according to the text, are on a downward trajectory. Their natural energetic trajectory is to flee outward.
They are fleeing away from the center ring, away from Eden.
Exactly. Remember, the center ring is characterized by pure nature, high divine frequency, and Christ consciousness.
Sure.
The elites possess a descending, highly intellectual, but spiritually disconnected consciousness.
So they clash.
They literally cannot handle that rising divine frequency radiating from the center. It burns them. It repels them. Therefore, their ultimate survival goal is to flee outward toward the third and fourth rings, toward the lands of Mars and Saturn.
Because it matches their vibe.
Yes. They are trying to reach realms defined by extreme artificiality, advanced technology, and low spiritual resonance, because that matches their internal frequency.
Wait, let me fully unpack this because the assertion the text is making here is wild. The model is claiming that the multi-billion-dollar push by elites and billionaires for space travel to Mars is not a noble exploration for the betterment of humanity.
No, not at all.
It is an evacuation plan for themselves. They are preparing to essentially abandon this ring of Earth because they cannot survive the localized spiritual awakening that is happening as the torus fields dilate.
That is precisely what the source material argues. It is a mass exodus of descending consciousness. And to ensure they can make this exit without the masses realizing what is happening and interfering, they employ massive divide and conquer strategies.
Keep us distracted.
They have to keep the population distracted.
The text specifically mentions the weaponization of demographics and culture. Gender wars, identity wars, race wars, endless regional conflicts over strips of desert. In the context of this model, these aren't just organic, tragic societal issues. They are highly engineered distractions.
It's a smokescreen.
It's a smokescreen to keep everyone looking at each other instead of looking at the borders.
The elite must keep the population's collective frequency as low as possible. By keeping humanity locked in a constant state of fear, anxiety, anger, and division, they prevent the masses from collectively tuning into the rising frequencies of the center.
If humanity is afraid, they won't ascend and they won't look toward the ice walls.
Exactly.
Imagine a crooked landlord who runs a miserable, cramped, overpriced apartment building.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Suddenly, he realizes the tenants are about to discover that the building actually has 100 free, beautiful, fully stocked luxury suites right behind a fake wall in the hallway.
Right.
The moment they find that wall, he stops getting paid. To stop them from exploring the hallway, the landlord starts a fire in the middle of the living room. Suddenly, nobody is looking for hidden doors. Everybody is panicked, fighting each other over the one fire extinguisher, just trying to survive the smoke.
Whole chaos.
The landlord keeps everyone huddled and distracted in the burning room, while he quietly packs his bags to move into the luxury suite next door.
That analogy perfectly illustrates the dynamic the sources describe. They are burning the paradigm down on their way out. The text specifically notes their heavy investment in artificiality. The rapid push for AI, transhumanism, synthetic food, digital currency.
It's also unnatural.
Right. They're building infrastructure that aligns with the cold, synthetic frequency of the outer lands they're heading towards. Meanwhile, those in the general population who are ascending are naturally being drawn back to organic living, community, and nature, preparing themselves for the rising frequencies of the inner ring.
So the whole space race, the militarization of Antarctica, the chaotic state of global news, according to this model, it's all just the logistics of a cosmic landlord fleeing a localized spiritual awakening.
According to the intricate, interconnected lore of the cosmic egg and the Norb theory, yes.
Wow. Okay, we need to take a breath and zoom out. Over the course of this deep dive, we have gone on an absolutely incredible journey. We started with a simple, standard classroom globe, and we completely shattered it.
We threw it right out the window.
We've explored the architecture of the cosmic egg. We redefined the impenetrable Antarctic ice walls not as frozen, dead wastelands at the bottom of a ball, but as the physical friction points of massive electromagnetic torus fields encapsulating concentric rings of land.
We ventured deep into the extraterrane theory, unpacking the semantic trick that outer space might actually be outer lands.
Outer lands.
That the luminaries we call Mars and Saturn are not distant spheres in a vacuum, but the suns of neighboring terrestrial rings on our own extended flat plane, populated by extraterrane beings whose biology is dictated by the immense speed and frequency of their localized domes.
And we looked at the cosmic clock, the breathing universe of the yugas, where these energetic walls are currently dilating and shifting, opening up gateways that are forcing a global elite to scramble for the exits while the rest of humanity begins to spiritually ascend.
It is a vast, all-encompassing cosmological blueprint.
And I want to ground this for a second.
Yeah.
If you adopt the lens of this source material, even just as a thought experiment, it is breathtaking in its scale.
It really is.
It reframes every single piece of news you hear. When you read an article about a new rover landing on Mars, or climate anomalies and melting ice at the poles, or shifts in global geopolitical power, or even when you read ancient Norse or Vedic mythology, this model gives you an entirely new, unified lens to view it all through.
It ties everything together.
It forces you to step out of your conditioned reality and ask what is truly possible. Are we really just biological accidents on a spinning rock in a dead vacuum? Or are we the central characters in a massive, intelligently designed, multi-tiered cosmic theater?
It challenges the very foundation of our perceived reality. And if we leave you with one final thought to mull over today, let it be this. If the Van Allen belts are truly expanding, and the electromagnetic borders to the outer lands are opening like a dilating pupil, it means the map of our world is not a static drawing.
It's moving.
It's not a piece of paper pinned to a wall.
Yeah.
It is a living, breathing clock. And the most important question isn't just where the extra terrain is, but when the walls will thin enough for you to see it for yourself.
The map is a clock.
Yeah.
I love that. And the crazy thing is, we have only covered half the map today. We spent all of our time looking outward, past the ice walls to the deep outer rings of Mars and Saturn.
We haven't even gone inside yet.
Exactly. Next time on the deep dive, we are going to venture in the exact opposite direction. We are going to bypass our ring and explore the mysterious first ring, the bullseye, the center, the Garden of Eden, Mount Meru, and what the ancient texts say is actually waiting for us at the true North Pole under the light of an androgynous sun. Trust me, you will not want to miss it. Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and thanks for taking the deep dive with us.